A transfer of rulership is coming, and the kingdom of heaven will be on earth. Righteousness will be spread throughout the whole four corners of the earth. Wickedness
is how they grow. They toil not, they spin not. And yet I say unto you that Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. If then God so clothed the grass which is today in the field and tomorrow is cast into the oven, how much more will he clothe you, O ye of little faith? And seek not ye what ye shall eat or what ye shall drink, neither be ye of doubtful mind. For all these things do the nations of the world seek after, and your Father knoweth that ye have need of these things. But rather seek ye the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell that ye have, and give alms. Provide yourselves bags which wax not old, a treasure in the heavens that faileth not, where no thief approacheth, neither moth corrupteth. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.
according to the Holy Scriptures. Yahushai, the Son of the Most High, is set to bring immortality to the nation of Israel, the elect, via establishing the tabernacle of David, as we talk about the second coming of who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. He is coming to take down this current world ruled by Esau, Edom, and establish a righteous kingdom, which is synonymous with the throne of David. That's scriptural, which is a government that's going to run this world in righteousness.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Kakadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers, and peace and blessing and salutation of the hopeful lake out there, pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai. Pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful lake, the believers, the listeners who have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Al Shai. All right. And what I want to get into today, is this video I was watching earlier, dealing with this guy Aldous Huxley, and he pretty much went into how, now the rulers, of society, all right, which we know, all right, Esau, Edom, okay, the so-called white man, all right, and mainly Amalek, okay, of the nation of Edom, that rule this current world, this beast system, okay, and now what we're seeing, is instead of by, pain and punishment, they rule the earth, through pleasure, by, lust, people's lust, people's desires, people's craving, for comfort. All right. And they've, created a world with so much convenience. All right. And so much distraction and so much access, to pleasure. All right. That the masses, are non-responsive, to the injustices that's done by them, by their government. Okay. And that's why the government, is pretty much able to do damn near anything it wants with not much kickback. The only time you get kickback is when you interfere with their pleasure. Okay. There was way more kickback, all right, when it came to, dealing with abortions, okay, dealing with, when, I think AT&T phone towers went down, people were going crazy, okay. The scare of losing TikTok, Okay, the scare of losing, OnlyFans. People, they were in an uproar about that. Okay, but when it comes to what's in your food, okay, when it comes to inflation and people not getting a real wage, since 1978, okay, there's no uproar about these things. Okay, the Transformers, reading the kindergarten. Okay, them trying to put alphabet books in school and pedo books in school, and no real uproar. Okay, but when it comes to interfering with people's pleasure, okay, which in the time to come, that's one of the things that the devil is going to snatch away from people, because most people are pleasure addicts. Okay, so we're gonna get a few precepts, and then we're gonna go into the video. Now, let's go here to the book of Isaiah. All right, this is the book of Isaiah 42 and 22. It said, "But this is a people robbed and spoiled," and this is speaking of Israelites. Because there's no one that's more of an addict to pleasure than Israel, and Esau knows that. Okay, even when you go through the scriptures, one of the reasons that Jake was into those idols because of the excess of pleasure. Going back to the temple prostitutes. Okay, the male and female, temple prostitutes. Just you can eat what you want. All right, as much as you want it. It was just all out, pleasure fest when you go into those idols. Okay, of those heathens. You see, and that's one of the things that will snare Jake into idolatry back then. And now we see Jake is robbed and spoiled again. And pleasure is one of the main things that robs and spoils our people. Okay, because when you live a life, just to fulfill pleasure, there's no order, there's no discipline. Okay, men are robbed of being men, women are robbed of being women. Okay, the nation is spoiled, and you just have this influx of pleasure. It said they are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none deliver them. All right, for a spoil, and none save restore. Okay, so you have these different religions and these different doctrines, and one of the things, even with Christianity is a doctrine to where there's not much restriction. Okay, you can destroy yourself in pleasure with Christianity. Because one of the things that destroys Jake more than anything is their diet. All right, which Christianity, it doesn't give you don't have any restrictions on your diet. Okay, but then in America as a whole, which is a snare. All right, and one of the main snares is the pleasure prison that this devil has. Okay, and it's like I say, it's just so appealing, it's so alluring. Okay, that people are highly addicted to it. Okay, let's go here. Isaiah 29:9 says, "Stay yourselves and wonder, cry ye out and cry. They are drunken, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink," man. And what are our people drunk off for, man? The doctrines, okay, of the beast, man. Okay, of Esau, Edom, the enchantments of Esau. Okay, our people are saturated and drunken in these things, man. Till they have made these enchantments of the devil a culture. Okay, and access to pleasure is a major part of the culture, man. You look on social media, what are people talking about the most, man? Food, all right, sex, all right, chasing the bag, traveling, trying to be seen, and all these different things. Now, pleasure is not wicked in itself, but excess and doing it out of order makes it wicked when it's in excess and when you're doing it out of order. Because dealing with a woman, okay, is not wicked as long as it's your woman. Okay, but when you're doing it with someone else's woman, then you're doing it to your own destruction, because that's what you live for. Then it becomes wicked. Now you're idolizing their act. Okay, certain things, the Lord made particular things to be enjoyed. Okay, but this devil, he pushes these certain things out of order. and he pushes these things in excess, and that's when it becomes all right, wicked. Okay, verse 10 it said, "For the Lord have poured upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and have closed your eyes. The prophets and your rulers, the seers, have he covered." Okay, and a part of this deep sleep, is these doctrines, man, that has our people just constantly distracted and constantly chasing pleasure, man. And Christianity is a big, delusion that our people are under. All right, Islam, Pan Africanism, all these different things. But one thing they all have in common: you're able to indulge in pleasure and destroy yourself, man. Okay, or you just, the American dream or whatever it is, nigga culture, whatever it is, it's all has the undertone, okay, of destroying yourself through pleasure. All right, so let's get this video. I want to play a few minutes of it. All right, that's why the scriptures is big on us, taming, okay, the flesh, because we come up in the society, it just told us to let loose, okay, when it came to pleasure, man. Okay, now when you go here, I asked this quick question in the chat. All right, and then we'll go to the video. But I said, yes, pleasure can be used as a tool to control the society. All right, intentionally or unintentionally. We know these devils do it intentionally. All right, it says, when you go here, it says, bread and circuses, all right, was a Roman Empire concept. The Roman phrase, all right, panin et circenses, all right, bread and circuses, refers to the idea that you can keep the masses docile by giving them food and entertainment. If people are comfortable and distracted by pleasure, they're less likely to rebel or question authority. Okay, and that's part of the darkness, okay, of this world. The constant distraction of pleasure and entertainment. Okay, and we was calling that mix, man. It's a time when we live, for the club. All right, live, certain drugs and alcohol. You see, for women or whatever it is, clout chasing money. Okay, and appearance or whatever it was, man. We live, for pleasure and entertainment. Okay, that's part of the darkness of this world. Okay, and it says Aldous Huxley, The Brave New World, which you're gonna this the video. He's gonna break down that book. All right, it says a classic fictional example in The Brave New World. The government maintains control by eliminating suffering and promoting constant pleasure. All right, via okay. Let's see. Hold on. Oh, plug up this. All right. So like it, plug up the laptop. All right. It says suffering. It says in the Brave New World, the government maintains control by eliminating suffering and promoting constant pleasure. All right, via drugs like Suma, casual sex, and mass entertainment. Okay, and how many apps? People are addicted to these dating apps. Okay, which are number of hookup apps. Hookup culture. There's a form. That's a form of that constant pleasure. Okay, it says citizens don't feel oppressed because they're never made to suffer or even reflect deeply. All right, it says addiction to convenience and entertainment. In modern societies, entertainment, social media, consumerism, and instant gratification, fast food, porn, mobile games provide constant hits of dopamine. Overstimulate can dull critical thinking and political engagement, making people easier to manipulate or pacify, man. Okay, and it's hard to get an uproar out of these people outside of taking away their pleasures, and as long as the American can eat, okay, get their rocks off and have their their drugs, their recreational drugs, okay, they good. They don't care what's happening, man. They don't care about the cost of living. Niggas gonna complain when niggas just gonna work more hours. Okay, they don't care about what's in the food. Okay, niggas just gonna eat until they check out. Okay, so this the government the elites have these people in a place to where they can pull off damn near anything, okay, that they want over the masses, man. There's really not much uproar, and if it is, these people have a short-term memory, man. They're gonna go right back, to what their stimuli, man, because Esau has created, stimuli junkies, man. Okay, so let's go here. All right, let's get the video. We'll play a few minutes, about 10 minutes of it, 10, 11 minutes maybe. Okay, so let's let this play.
Imagine a prison where people don't want to escape. A society where control doesn't come from force, but from pleasure. Aldous Huxley showed this nearly a century ago in his book, Brave New World. He saw that the future wouldn't be made of chains and whips, but of endless entertainment and pleasures. The English writer understood something that few people realized at the time. Pleasure can be a more powerful weapon than pain. When people are busy having fun, they don't question anything. They don't fight. They don't protest. They don't think much about life. This is the story of how pleasure became the perfect method of control, and how we still live today inside this golden trap that Huxley described. Aldous Huxley discovered something frightening about power. Rulers no longer need to use force to control people. They can use something much more effective: constant pleasure. In Brave New World, Huxley showed a society where no one suffers, but no one really lives either. The secret lies in the anesthetization of the senses. When people are always busy with entertainment, they don't stop to think. Entertainment becomes a smokescreen that hides reality. TV series, games, parties. All of this can function like a drug that keeps the mind asleep. But here's the most clever trick. Huxley realized that pain always sparked revolts. When people suffered, they came together and fought for change. But pleasure does the opposite. It separates people, each in their own little world of personal entertainment. It's as if each person had their own golden cell, decorated with everything they like. The most impressive thing is that this control works because people choose it. No one forces anyone to watch television for hours or stay glued to their phone. People do this because it feels good.
And real quick, all right, something else I looked up too, because he says like everyone is in their personal prison, and you have a term. I looked it up. I heard brothers say it a few times, and so I looked into it. When you go to hyper, all right, individualism, okay. So I looked up what is hyper individualism. It says hyper individualism is a cultural or ideological condition where extreme emphasis is placed on the individual, often at the expense of community, social responsibility, or collective identity, man. All right. And this is a society that's very hyper individualized. Okay. You have, even in one house, it's, you can have 5 people in the house. Let's say you have, a husband, wife, okay, 4 children, where everyone, is in to their own thing. Everyone has their own bubble. They can be under the same roof, okay, but everyone is in their own personal pleasure prison, okay. And this is what you see, especially amongst Jake, okay, is hyper individualism, okay. And even why, like, these guys rap, these guys make a whole album talking about themselves, what they got, what they finna buy, what they done did, who they done shot, the women they done popped, and this is just all them. Okay. And it's a very hyper individual culture. Okay. It says it's not just valuing, it says the core idea, it says not just valuing individuality or personal freedom, all right, which most modern societies do. Hyper individualism takes it further, framing life primarily in terms of self-interest, self-expression, and personal success. with little regard for how actions affect others or the collective good. Okay, you have people in relationships in competition with each other, brothers and sisters at competition with each other. There's not much collectiveness, man. You know, it's a very hyper individual society. It says characteristics of hyper individualism. It says me first mentality. Mentality. It says prioritizing personal desires, convenience, and autonomy above all else. All right, even when it harms relationships or communities, man. Okay, and you see a lot of this. You have Eve and even Jake. The sorry niggas that they be having children by. You see Jake's. With these, cars. All right, painted out, decked out. Okay. Money, all on social media. Okay, but they don't take care of their children. Okay, you got Eve that'll leave the children, the infants at the house by themselves to go on a cruise. Okay, it's extremely hyper individualism amongst our people, man. Okay, and it says weakening. It says weakening on social bonds. All right, decline of community. Says civic engagement and shared responsibility, man. And it's hard to find, people, okay, that know how to even engage, in a casual conversation. Okay, people's social skills are trash. Okay, a casual conversation, is hard to find. People, they're these, super celebrities on the internet, all right, but then in a real time conversation, okay, or real time engagement, is awkward to them. Okay, it says people are less involved in local community, religion, all right, self as a brand. Okay, that's why you even see it says your identity becomes a curated product. That's why you see people on social media with all these different titles, okay, and names. They made themselves a brand. Okay, but when you go into, all right, their skills, okay, their skill set, for being for working in a group is trash. Okay, most of our people do not know how to work in any type of group setting. Whether it's family, work, okay, community. Most of our people do not know how to work in any type of group setting, man. Because it's a society where it's hyper individual, man. And the scriptures say that people shall be lovers of themselves. Okay, in these times. Okay, so let's go here. Let's go back to it. I think that's in 1 Timothy when it says people shall be lovers of themselves. And I'm gonna rewind it back a little bit. He spoke about those personal prisons, of pleasure.
But pleasure does the opposite. It separates people, each in their own little world of personal entertainment. It's as if each person had their own golden cell, decorated with everything they like. The most impressive thing is that this control works because people choose it. No one forces anyone to watch television for hours or stay glued to their phone. People do this because it feels good, it's easy, it's comfortable. Pleasure becomes a voluntary prison where people lock themselves in. The diabolical genius of this system is that it doesn't seem bad. On the contrary, it seems wonderful. Who doesn't want to be happy all the time? Who doesn't want to avoid pain and discomfort? But Huxley showed that this artificial happiness is actually a form of living death. The person stops growing, stops questioning, stops being truly human. And so the world's biggest factory was born. Not a factory of cars or clothes, but a factory of fake happiness. Modern society became a giant machine for producing artificial emotions. Like a factory, it takes normal people and transforms them into consumers addicted to stimuli. This process happens so subtly that most people don't even realize they're being manipulated. Think about the last time you saw an advertisement. The system works by creating desires that didn't exist before. Advertisements show happy people using products, making everyone want to have the same happiness. But when the person buys the product, the happiness doesn't last long. Soon, another desire appears, another product, another promise of satisfaction. Of course, not everything that gives us pleasure is bad. Watching a movie occasionally or buying something we need aren't problems. The danger is when these activities become a constant escape from reality. When the person can no longer be alone with their thoughts, when they always need some external distraction, that's when pleasure has become prison. People's emotions become shallow because they never have to deal with real difficulties. It's like a muscle that isn't used. It gets weak. When the person only feels superficial pleasures, they lose the ability to feel deeper things like compassion, courage, or true love. This emotional superficiality makes people predictable. They always react the same way, seeking more pleasure when they're sad, more fun when they're bored. The system can easily control these people because it knows exactly what they'll do in each situation. Now get ready to meet Soma, the most dangerous drug that ever existed. In Huxley's book, there was a drug called Soma that solved any emotional problem. Were you sad? Take Soma. Were you anxious? Take Soma. It was the magic solution for everything. Today we don't have a pill called Soma, but we have many other things that play the same role. You've probably taken Soma today without realizing it. Social media functions as modern Soma. When the person feels lonely or insecure, they grab their phone and dive into the virtual world. There they find likes, comments, funny videos. For a few hours, the existential pain disappears. But as soon as they leave social media, the pain returns, sometimes even stronger. Pornography is another type of Soma. It offers instant pleasure without having to deal with the complications of a real relationship. The person doesn't need to know themselves, doesn't need to grow emotionally, doesn't need to face their fears. But this artificial pleasure leaves an even bigger emptiness afterward. Uncontrolled consumption also works like a drug. Buying new things gives a good temporary feeling. The person feels important, fulfilled, happy. But this happiness disappears quickly, and soon they need to buy something else to feel pleasure again. Even medications can become Soma when they're used to escape from life. Of course, many people really need medicine for health problems. But when medicines are used just to avoid feeling sadness, anxiety, or any emotional discomfort, they become a way of escaping personal growth. All these modern Somas have something in common. They promise to solve pain without the person needing to make any real effort to change. It's like putting a band-aid on an infected wound. For a while, but the problem remains there, often getting worse. But there's something even more sinister happening. There's a very thin line between wanting something and being a slave to that desire. Huxley showed how the constant promise of satisfaction transforms free people into voluntary slaves. They think they're choosing, but actually they're being chosen by their impulses. Étienne de la Boétie, an ancient French thinker, wrote about voluntary servitude. He said that people often choose to be slaves because it's easier than being free. Freedom takes work, requires responsibility, is sometimes uncomfortable. Slavery, on the other hand, offers security and comfort. See if this sounds familiar. Pleasure functions as an invisible chain. The person doesn't see they're trapped because the chain is made of pleasant things. It's like an addiction to chocolate. The person knows it's bad for them, but can't stop because it tastes so good. The difference is that addiction to pleasure in general is much more subtle and socially accepted. Emotional dependence happens when the person can no longer be alone with themselves. They always need some distraction, some external stimulus. Being in silence, doing nothing, becomes torture. The person has lost the ability to find peace and joy within themselves. The most dangerous thing is that this slavery looks like freedom. The person can do everything they want. Eat, drink, have sex, buy, have fun. But they can't not do these things. When pleasure becomes stops being pleasure and becomes prison. And here we arrive at a terrible paradox. Excess comfort can be as dangerous as lack of it. Huxley realized that when people have everything too easy, they stop fighting for important things. It's as if freedom were a muscle. If it's not exercised, it gets weak and can even die. Look around you. Political apathy is one of the symptoms of this anesthetized freedom. When people are busy with their personal pleasures, they're not interested in what happens in society. Politicians can do whatever they want because the people are distracted with entertainment. It's easier to complain about the government from the couch at home than to go out on the street to protest. Spiritual alienation is another serious problem. People stop asking life's big questions. Why am I here? What's the meaning of all this? How can I be a better person? These questions are uncomfortable, so it's easier to turn on the television and forget about them. Intellectual demobilization is perhaps the most dangerous. When the brain is always busy with superficial stimuli, it loses the ability to think deeply. It's like eating only fast food. It satisfies hunger, but doesn't really nourish. Thinking becomes shallow, incapable of making complex connections or questioning accepted ideas. But maybe you're wondering, is there a way out? And the answer might shock you. Huxley said something very profound. Truth is not always comfortable. Actually, truth is almost never comfortable. It requires the person to face things about themselves and about the world that they'd rather not see. That's why most people choose to live in illusion. Illusion is like a soft blanket that protects from the cold of reality. It's comfortable, warm, familiar.
Yeah, so I'm gonna leave it there. I want to get some precepts real quick. And also let me go here too. Because he spoke about people trying to escape, and you have this term called escapism. In this society. Let me pull it up. Okay, because people, are more depressed than ever. They're on social media, comparing their lives to other people. People are more depressed. All right, and most people are running from their reality. And people enjoy being numb to reality. You have this thing called escapism. Is a tendency or desire to avoid unpleasant realities, especially by diving into distractions. Fantasies are alternate experiences that provide temporary relief or pleasure. Now he goes into, all right, forms of escapism. All right, entertainment, binge watching shows, reading fantasy novels, gaming, scrolling social media. All right, substance use, drugs, alcohol, or anything used to numb or avoid feelings. All right, imagining a different life, ideal relationship, fantasy, daydreaming, future success, staying busy to avoid emotional discomfort. Okay, spiritual bypass and using religion or positivity to ignore pain or real world problems. Okay, and this is a society that's big on escapism, man. And this is why Americans spend more on entertainment, than most people, than most countries have, than most countries make, in a year. Americans spend more on entertainment, okay, than most people, other countries spend in a year. Matter of fact, let's look that up. How much money does Americans spend on entertainment yearly? Is it more than some country GDP? Some GDP. You got to search the web. All right. It says, how much do Americans spend on entertainment? All right, on entertainment each year. All right. It says in 2023, the average U.S. household spent approximately $3,600 annually on entertainment. That's $303 per month. This spending represents only 4.7% of households' total expenses. Okay, which let's go here. Okay, I'm trying to see the total amount. Okay, so to put it in aggregate terms, in 2018, with about 131 million households, entertainment spending total around $424 billion. All right, $424 billion on entertainment. Okay, 420. You see, show you that America, is heavy into escapism. And some countries don't make, $424, $420 billion, a year domestically, man. Okay, but America spends that, in entertainment. Okay, and then most of it goes into escapism, man. Because the reality of America is getting worse. But as long as people still have, their fix of entertainment and pleasure, they stay cool, calm, and collected. All right, and at least know that, and they know when they script their entertainment and the pleasure, that's when people, all right, are going to lose it. Okay, and that's when they're going to present the C-hip as a way to get back to that. All right, now this is in the book of Romans, which this is spiritual, that it was in the book of Romans. Is Apostle Paul is writing to who? The Romans. Okay, which Rome was known for what? Bread and circus. Okay, in Rome, they knew how to pamper their slaves. Okay, and keep them occupied, man, and keep them, make them feel part, of the Roman Empire. And you see, they got to partake and indulge in certain pleasures in Rome. All right, this Romans 6 and 11 is in NLT. All right, it says, so you also. I'll start at 12. It said, do not let sin control the way you live. Do not give in to sinful desires. Don't let any part of your body become an instrument of evil to serve sin. Instead, give yourselves completely to the Most High, for you were dead, but now you have new life. So use your whole body as an instrument to do what is right for the glory of the Most High. And see, as we awaken to the truth, we awaken to a purpose. Now, we're not without sin, but we don't live to serve sin, and even things, that are lawful, can become a sin if overindulged. Okay, it can be a hindrance, especially as we have, an office in this ministry, man. Drinking can become, a hindrance, okay, to our office in this, because now we have a purpose. You see, that's one thing too. It's easy to get caught up in pleasure when you don't have true purpose, man. Most people are living with no purpose, man. Most people are living to what? Survive. Okay, so if you're living to survive, you really don't have any true purpose. So you pleasure yourself every chance you get. Okay, and a lot of people pleasure themselves with sin. Adultery. Eating unlawful foods. Okay, people stealing to get ahead. You see, just caught up in all type of things, man. Okay, but now, man, we have an office now, and see, being on our purpose, keep us occupied, to where, we, are not servants of sin or servants to the flesh. It says sin is no longer your master. You no longer live under the requirements of the law. Instead, you live under the freedom of the Most High's grace. Well, then, since the Most High's grace has set us free from the law, does that mean we can go on sinning? Of course not. So grace, just because we're not judged, by the letter of the law, okay, that doesn't mean that we can wild out. No. Okay. That means that within this grace period, we should take that opportunity to learn righteousness, man, and be occupied in serving in righteousness, man. You see, especially, we have things to actually do. Okay. We have things to keep us occupied. Okay. So as we have this grace to where, we fall short, we're covered by the blood, okay, of Yahushua, You see, but this grace period is for us to serve, man, and for us to rehearse the righteous acts as we're serving. Okay? Verse 16 said, don't you realize that you become a slave of whatever you choose to obey? You can be a slave to sin, which leads to death, or you can choose to obey the Most High, which leads to righteous living. So you're a slave to whatever you obey. And if you're obeying the flesh, because it's the flesh that have you out, all night going from club to club, bar to bar, all right, on the dating sites all day, scrolling all goddamn time. It's the flesh. That means you're a slave to the flesh. The flesh have you doing these things, man, drinking yourself to sleep. First thing you do is on the bottle early. That's the flesh. That means that flesh dominates you, man. You're a slave to the flesh. Okay, and as we mature in this truth, man, we grow out of those things, man, because we all come, most of us come from that, some more than other, but we come from all, different, walks of life, man, to where we had certain vices, man, that we serve those vices, man. We work overtime for those vices, man. Okay, etc. You see, and see, there's nothing wrong with pleasure. Is the indulgence, and it has to be done in order, okay, according to righteousness, man, because you get this here in the book of Sirach. All right, let's get this in the book of Sirach, chapter I believe it's 31. All right, in the book of Sirach. Come on, man. 31 and is it 27? Yep. It says wine is good as life to a man. All right, if it be drunk and moderately, man. And we can relate wine, to, any type of pleasure that's done in righteousness, man. Because you can deal with your woman. Ain't nothing wrong with that, but it has to be done moderately, man. Okay, and it's different for everyone. Everyone's moderation is different. Okay, there's nothing wrong, kicking it. Brothers get together, hang out, but that has to be done moderately because we all have an office, man. Okay, and whatever other, simple pleasures, that's lawful, that we can enjoy. These things are cool, but it has to be done in moderation. It says, what life is then to a man that is without wine, for it was made, all right, to make men glad. Okay, so there's a balance, all right, when it comes to, pleasure. Okay, but this society controls people through pleasure. It enchants people to be slaves to pleasure, man, where they're easily controlled. Okay, and then like a lot of the pleasure be unlawful, man. Like I say, adultery, alphabet, there's wild. Okay, different drugs, and you see, there's wilding, man. Okay, it says wine measurably drunk and in season, because there's a time for that. There's a time for that. And see, there's a time for the script say there's a season for everything under the sun. There's a time, for everything, man. Okay, and within the liberty we have in Yahushua, every now and then, okay, we enjoy particular things. Okay, well, it's a season for everything, man. Okay, it says in cheerfulness of mind, but wine drunken with excess maketh bitterness of mind with brawling and quarreling, man. Okay, you see, with excess, okay, it causes problems. Anything done with excess can be a problem, man. I say, well, is women, drink, partying, just any, entertaining yourself too goddamn much here, man. Especially in these bigger cities where, it's going down every second. It said drunkenness increases the rage of a fool till he offend. It diminishes strength and maketh wounds, man. Because in that party and being in the flesh all the time, man, it puts us in the weak, it puts us on the low frequency, man. And we all been there before, man, that you do something and you just be out the spirit, man. You can tell like, damn, I'm out the spirit, I'm off, I ain't tapped in. The spirit lets us know when we do too much, man. And this is what Yahweh Shah warned about. You know, when you go to Luke, all right, 21, you know, we end it here. Okay, this is Luke 21. And all right, and then 34, this is in NLT. It says, watch out, don't let your hearts or your mind be dulled by carousing and drunkenness, man. Okay, overindulging in pleasure. Okay, and by the worries of this life, don't let the day catch you unaware. And it's the day of Yahweh Shai. That's why scripture always tell us what to be sober minded. Okay, you know, of course, you know, not to be crazy drunk, man, but to be sharp in the mind when it comes to the prophecies and the spiritual things that's happening in real time. Okay, it says like a trap, because pleasure is a trap in this world, man. The cares of this life can be a trap. Okay, it said for that day will come upon everyone living on earth. Keep alert at all times. Yeah, the hour of temptation, man, and it's approaching. Where everyone's going to be tried. And a lot of people are going to take the sea hill to get back to the pleasure. Esau is going to promise pleasure. He's going to promise enhanced pleasure. Okay? It says, keep alert at all times and pray that you might be strong enough to escape these coming horrors and stand before the Son of Man. You see? And that's why discipline, okay, that's why part of this wisdom, you know, is about constantly applying discipline, man. You see? Discipline is a major part of the truth of this wisdom, man. Okay? And we live in a society that's undisciplined than never. Okay? Well, most people, all right, are for the taking. You know, Esau has them, you know, pampered to the point that they can't, all right, exist, okay, without this beast system up and functioning, man. You know? But we've been conditioned to look beyond, okay, and to, you know, enjoy simplicity, man, to appreciate the simple things, man. Okay? But a lot of people, all right, are in this trap of pleasure, of convenience, okay, and when it's snatched away, okay, they're going to fold, all right, to get it back and take that sea hill, man. Okay? And we go here and see, like I've been saying, you know, the Spirit just been having on my spirit to say it, man. We got forever to do everything, even when you go into the scriptures. Okay? Because pleasure, all right, and you know, in itself, I say it's not wicked, but the way that it's done in this society, you know, out of order and overindulge, that what makes it wicked. Psalms 16:11 said, "Thou wilt show me the path of life." Okay, and it's through Yahweh Shai. See, we're gonna learn. See, we're gonna live. Okay, when Yahweh Shai comes back, man, we're gonna live, man. We got forever to do everything. Okay, don't get caught up in these little moments that don't mean nothing. Okay, these little moments and times, and you know, these particular things. Don't get caught up in this. It really don't mean nothing, man. Okay, it says, "In thy presence is fullness of joy. At thy right hand there are pleasures forevermore," man. We're gonna enjoy pleasure, but it's gonna be in righteousness and it's gonna be in moderation forever, man. Okay, there ain't gonna be no backlash like in this society, man. Okay, so that's the point. You know, just wanted to get into that. You know, Lord will, you know, you brothers, all right, and you sisters are edified once again. You know, I'm gonna give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kakodash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders, GMS, who rule well, teach well, being great examples to us younger brothers, and peace and blessing, salutations, hopefully, Shalom.